Welcome to Long Story Spoken.
Long stories, spoken simply.
Welcome back, power seekers and curious minds, to Long Story Spoken. I'm Katie, your host, and I'm still trying to process some of those first 12 laws we discussed in part 1. And, of course, I'm joined by my co-host and our resident book guide through this labyrinth of power, Luke. How are you feeling after our last intense session?
Ready for more? Katie, it's definitely a book that sticks with you, and these next 12 laws are just as potent as the first. It's fascinating how many of these principles we see playing out, even in our everyday lives, if you just know where to look.
Absolutely. And speaking of looking, before we dive into today's batch of wisdom, or perhaps cunning, remember to check out the description box below this video or in your podcast player notes. We've got links there if you want to get your own copy of the 48 Laws of Power or explore more of Robert Greene's work. Those are affiliate links. And using them is a fantastic way to support Long Story Spoken and help us keep bringing you these deep dives.
Your support means the world to us, truly.
All right, Luke. Last time we covered laws 1 through 12, which, I have to say, really challenged my conventional ideas about honesty, friendship, and reputation. Today, we're jumping into laws 13 through 24. I'm braced. What's the first one we're dissecting?
Law number 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude.
Never to their mercy or gratitude. Oh, wow. So, no sob stories, no guilt trips.
Exactly. This law is intensely pragmatic. It states that when you need something from someone, whether it's a favor, a service, or even just their agreement, you should never appeal to their good nature, their compassion, or try to remind them of past favors they owe you. Why? Because people are inherently self-interested. Their mercy is fleeting, and their gratitude often turns to resentment. People are far more likely to act when they see a direct benefit for themselves in doing so. So, your approach should always be to show them how helping you will, in some way, benefit them. Frame your request in terms of their gain, not your need.
So, instead of saying, please help me because I'm struggling, it's more like, if you help me with this, it will open up a new market for you, or this project will reflect well on your department. Is that the gist?
Precisely. You shift the focus entirely. The book gives an excellent example from the story of the Roman general Coriolanus. He was a brilliant warrior, but also notoriously arrogant. After being exiled by the Romans, he led an army against Rome, intending to destroy it. When his mother, wife, and children appealed to him on bended knee, begging for mercy for Rome based on family ties and past affection, he was momentarily moved, but he still intended to continue his attack. However, when his mother then changed her tactic and appealed to his legacy, telling him that if he destroyed Rome, his name would be forever tarnished as a monster, but if he retreated, he would be remembered as the man who spared his city. That was the argument that truly swayed him. She appealed to his self-interest, his reputation, and his place in history, not just her feelings.
That's a powerful distinction. It's almost cold, but it makes sense when you think about how people actually operate in the world, especially in high-stakes situations.
Law number 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy.
This sounds like something out of a classic noir film.
It absolutely does, Katie. This law is about the subtle art of information gathering. It advises that to understand your rivals, or even your allies, you shouldn't just observe from a distance. Instead, you should immerse yourself in their world, appear friendly and harmless, and subtly encourage them to reveal their intentions and weaknesses. People are often disarmed by friendliness and will unwittingly spill secrets. You listen, you observe, you ask indirect questions, and you gather intelligence. The information you collect this way is invaluable, allowing you to anticipate their moves, exploit their vulnerabilities, or even use their own words against them later. It's about getting close enough to see everything without revealing your true investigative purpose.
So, it's about being a chameleon, blending in, and getting people to drop their guard because they see you as harmless or even a confidant. Sounds like a lot of actors probably use this.
It's a very common tactic. The book highlights the methods of Catherine the Great of Russia. She was a master of this. When she came to power, she understood the need to gather intelligence on her courtiers and potential rivals. She would engage them in seemingly casual conversations, often sharing her own innocent observations or vulnerabilities, which encouraged them to reciprocate. She'd host intimate gatherings where people felt relaxed and spoke freely. She created an atmosphere of trust, but behind the scenes, she was meticulously noting their opinions, their allegiances, and their weaknesses. She knew who was greedy, who was ambitious, and who was loyal, all through appearing as a warm, engaging friend while constantly working as a strategic spy, building a vast network of information that cemented her rule.
That's really insightful. It's not about overt interrogation, but about making people want to talk to you.
Law number 15. Crush your enemy totally.
This one feels medieval. Is it really that ruthless?
It's extremely ruthless, Katie. But the book argues it's a fundamental law of power. It states that if you start a conflict, if you decide to go to war, metaphorically or literally, with an enemy, you must destroy them completely. Never leave any room for them to recover, to regroup, or to seek revenge. If you leave even a spark, it will eventually ignite into a flame that can consume you. The aim is not just to defeat them, but to annihilate their will to fight, their resources, and their reputation, ensuring they can never pose a threat again. Mercy, in this context, is seen as a dangerous weakness that will only come back to haunt you.
So, no half measures, no taking prisoners, just complete and utter demolition. It's a very stark, zero-sum game outlook.
Absolutely. The book gives the chilling example of the Roman general Sulla. After a brutal civil war against Marius and his supporters, Sulla gained control of Rome. Instead of showing clemency or simply exiling his enemies, he implemented prescriptions, lists of individuals declared outlaws whose property was confiscated and whose killers were rewarded. He pursued every last supporter of Marius, ensuring that none were left alive to challenge his power or seek vengeance. This ruthless, total eradication of his enemies, though horrific, secured his power for years and prevented any immediate resurgence of opposition. It illustrates the law's core idea. Fear of complete annihilation is a powerful deterrent, and leaving an enemy alive only invites future trouble.
That's a very unsettling, but historically prevalent approach.
Law number 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor.
So, play hard to get. This feels more social than political.
It's both, Katie. This law is about understanding the psychology of perceived value. It suggests that too much presence, too much availability can diminish your value over time. Just as rarity makes a gem more precious, absence can make your presence more desired and respected. When you are constantly around, people can take you for granted. They can get bored, or they can even start to resent your constant presence. By withdrawing periodically, by making yourself scarce, you create a sense of longing, a renewed appreciation for your presence, and a perception that your time is valuable. It compels people to seek you out and elevates your status.
So, don't overstay your welcome, basically. Make them miss you.
Exactly. The book provides the example of Louis XIV again. He was the epitome of royal grandeur, but he also understood this law. While he maintained a magnificent court, he would occasionally withdraw for periods, sometimes to his private residences, or simply make himself less accessible. This scarcity made his appearances, his audiences, and his pronouncements even more anticipated and revered. People would vie for his attention when he did appear, demonstrating their respect and desire for his favor. If he had been constantly available, his presence would have become mundane. By controlling his visibility, he controlled his perceived worth and maintained an aura of majesty and power. Law number 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability.
This sounds like a recipe for chaos, not control.
It might seem like chaos, Katie, but it's a very deliberate strategy for control. This law states that humans are creatures of habit and predictability. When you are predictable, people feel comfortable and they can anticipate your moves and exploit them. To truly gain power, you need to deliberately break patterns, act in ways that are unexpected, and occasionally do things that confuse and even frighten those around you. This unpredictability keeps people off balance on their toes, and in a state of suspended terror, unsure of what you'll do next. They become so preoccupied with trying to understand your motives that they can't plan against you, making them easier to control. It creates an aura of immense power, as if you're beyond their comprehension.
So, be erratic on purpose. Don't let anyone get a read on you. That would certainly be unsettling for people.
Precisely. The book highlights the tactics of various historical figures. A great example is the ancient Athenian general Alcibiades. He was notoriously inconsistent in his behavior. One day, a devoted citizen. The next, a flamboyant hedonist, then a shrewd military strategist. His unpredictability made him a constant source of fascination and fear. People could never quite pin him down, and this kept his enemies and even his allies guessing, unable to form a coherent strategy against him. He might praise an enemy today and condemn them tomorrow, leaving everyone confused about his true intentions. This cultivated chaos worked to his advantage, making him seem both dangerous and elusive. Law number 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous.
This one feels counterintuitive to law number 10 about avoiding the unhappy.
It does seem to contradict, but they operate on different levels. Law 18 warns against physical and social isolation. It states that building a fortress, whether it's a literal castle or an emotional wall around yourself, might seem like the safest way to protect your power, but it's actually incredibly dangerous. By isolating yourself, you lose touch with crucial information from the outside world. You become cut off from important trends, from the sentiments of your people, and from potential threats. You become an easy target because you lack intelligence and allies. The law advocates for being in the thick of things, engaged with the world, even if it means exposure to some danger. You need to be where the information flows, where alliances are made, and where opportunities arise.
So, instead of retreating into a shell, you need to be out there, gathering intel and forming connections, even if it means some risk.
The classic example is the Chinese Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi, who unified China and built the Great Wall. While the wall was a physical barrier, his ultimate downfall was his increasing paranoia and isolation. He surrounded himself with sycophants, executed anyone who challenged him, and retreated into his palace. Losing touch with the reality of his empire, he became an easy target for internal plots and rebellions because he was disconnected, receiving only filtered information. Conversely, his successor, Liu Bang, who founded the Han Dynasty, maintained close ties with his generals and the populace, staying connected and adapting, thus securing his power far more effectively than the isolated emperor. Law number 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person.
This sounds like basic social common sense, but I imagine there's a power twist.
There's absolutely a power twist, Katie. This law is about being an astute judge of character and understanding the potential ramifications of your actions on different types of people. It states that not everyone reacts to power plays, manipulation, or even insults in the same way. Some people are easily intimidated, some are quick to anger, some are deeply vindictive, and some are simply too powerful to risk offending. If you misjudge a person and offend someone with a deeply ingrained grudge, or someone who has vast resources and influence, their reaction can destroy you. The key is to assess their character, their connections, their past behavior, and their ability to retaliate before you make any move against them or even simply displease them.
So, it's about risk assessment, identifying the hidden landmines. Don't poke the bear if the bear has a really big, well-connected family.
Precisely. The book gives the example of Madame de Maintenon, the powerful mistress of Louis XIV. She was approached by a younger courtier who sought her influence. The courtier, however, made the mistake of subtly suggesting that Madame de Maintenon was getting old and that her power might wane. Madame de Maintenon, a woman of immense influence and vindictive nature, calmly listened, but then systematically orchestrated the young courtier's ruin. The courtier had failed to know his mark, to understand that this seemingly gentle woman held vast power and would not tolerate any slight, especially one touching on her age and diminishing influence. This mistake cost the courtier everything. It's about recognizing the psychological makeup and the real power base of your target. Law number 20. Do not commit to anyone.
This sounds like a recipe for a very lonely life, Luke. Or at least, a very strategic one.
A very strategic one indeed, Katie. This law is all about maintaining ultimate independence and flexibility in the game of power. It advises against committing too strongly to any one side, any one person, or any one cause. Why? Because committing limits your options makes you predictable and can tie you down to someone else's fate or agenda. The powerful person remains free, playing groups and individuals against each other, always able to switch sides or demand better terms from whichever party is most desperate for their allegiance. By remaining uncommitted, you become an object of desire. People will vie for your attention and loyalty, offering you more to gain your support, thus increasing your power.
So, be a free agent, play the field, and let others bid for your loyalty. It's a very transactional view of relationships.
It absolutely is. The book cites the example of the legendary courtesan and spy, Nanon de l'Enclos, in 17th century Paris. She was renowned for her independence and her refusal to commit to any single patron or lover. She had powerful admirers from all factions of society, aristocrats, artists, politicians, but she never tied herself exclusively to any one of them. This non-commitment made her incredibly desirable and gave her immense influence. Each man vied for her favor, and she was able to gather information and exert influence across different circles precisely because she belonged to no one. Her neutrality and independence were her sources of power, making others dependent on her attention rather than the other way around. Law number 21, play a sucker to catch a sucker, seem dumber than your mark.
This is where it gets really Machiavellian, isn't it?
It's definitely getting there. This law is about disarming people by appealing to their vanity. It states that no one likes to feel less intelligent than others. If you want to manipulate someone, or extract information, or even just get them to drop their guard, pretend to be less intelligent, less knowledgeable, or less capable than you actually are. Let them believe they are superior, that they are outsmarting you. This makes them feel comfortable, less threatened, and often quite arrogant. In their overconfidence, they will often become careless, reveal their true intentions, or make mistakes that you can then exploit. It's a psychological trick to get them to underestimate you.
So, pretend to be naive or a bit slow, let them gloat in their perceived cleverness, and then strike when they're complacent. The ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing.
Exactly. The book features the story of the brilliant diplomat Otto von Bismarck. He was notorious for sometimes appearing to be a provincial bumpkin, slow to grasp concepts, or even slightly foolish in social settings, particularly when dealing with foreign dignitaries or rivals whom he secretly deemed less intelligent. He would feign confusion, ask seemingly naive questions, and let them explain things to him as if he were a dull student. This inflated their egos, made them feel superior, and often led them to underestimate his strategic depth. While they were busy congratulating themselves on their perceived cleverness, Bismarck was meticulously gathering information, analyzing their weaknesses, and laying the groundwork for his next move, often to their detriment. He used their vanity as a weapon against them. Law number 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power.
This sounds like judo for power dynamics.
It's exactly that, Katie. This law is about the strategic use of apparent weakness. It states that when you are weaker, never fight for honor's sake or try to resist a stronger opponent head-on. Instead, surrender. But not just any surrender. It's a calculated, strategic retreat. By surrendering, you disarm your opponent's aggression. There's no one left to fight. While they are busy celebrating their victory, you buy time to recover, to regroup, to find their weak spots, and to wait for them to become arrogant or complacent. This allows you to ultimately rise again and even turn the tables. It's about converting an obvious disadvantage into a long-term strategic advantage.
So, if you can't beat them, join them, but with a secret plan to take them down from the inside later. It's playing dead to escape the predator.
Precisely. The book gives the classic example of the small state of Rohan in the 30 Years' War. When faced with the overwhelming power of the French army, the Duke of Rohan, instead of futilely resisting, immediately surrendered. He outwardly accepted French terms, even seemingly collaborating. This disarmed the French, who saw him as completely defeated. However, while under French control, Rohan quietly rebuilt his forces, gathered intelligence, and waited for the opportune moment when French attention was diverted elsewhere. When the time was right, he rose in a sudden rebellion and regained his independence. His surrender was a brilliant tactical delay that allowed him to transform weakness into eventual victory. Law number 23. Concentrate your forces.
This sounds like something from a military strategy textbook.
It absolutely is, Katie, and it applies equally to power dynamics in any field. This law advises against spreading yourself too thin or trying to achieve too many things at once. It argues that dispersing your energy and resources across many goals, or many fronts, is a recipe for mediocrity and ultimately failure. Instead, you should identify your single most important objective, or the area where you have the greatest strength, and then pour all your resources, all your energy, and all your focus into that one concentrated effort. Deepening your position and achieving mastery in one area will bring more power and lasting success than shallow involvement in many.
So, focus, focus, focus. Identify your strongest suit and double down on it, rather than trying to be a jack of all trades.
Exactly. The book uses the example of the industrialist Andrew Carnegie. While he had interests in various areas, he ultimately concentrated his vast energy and capital on the steel industry. He didn't diversify too broadly. Instead, he relentlessly focused on improving efficiency, acquiring raw materials, and dominating every aspect of steel production. This intense concentration of his forces allowed him to build an unparalleled empire in that specific field, making him one of the wealthiest and most powerful figures of his time. Had he spread his resources across dozens of different ventures, his impact would have been diffused. Law number 24. Play the perfect courtier.
This sounds like a guide to navigating high society or a corporate ladder.
It's precisely that, Katie. This law is a comprehensive guide to understanding and mastering the subtle art of indirect influence and social maneuvering, particularly in environments where power is centralized, like a royal court or a corporate hierarchy. It's about being incredibly adaptable, charming, and indispensable without seeming overtly ambitious or threatening. A perfect courtier is a master of flattery, but subtle, not obvious, a skilled conversationalist, a careful listener, and someone who knows how to deliver bad news gracefully or make their master feel clever. They understand unspoken rules, they never challenge authority directly, and they cultivate an aura of effortless competence and loyalty. They know when to be visible and when to blend into the background.
So, it's about being a master of soft power, playing the social game perfectly to gain favor and influence behind the scenes.
Exactly. The book highlights the French statesman Talleyrand as the quintessential example of the perfect courtier. He served under numerous, wildly different regimes: the Ancien regime, the French Revolution, Napoleon, the Bourbon Restoration, and Louis Philippe, and managed to maintain his influence and position through all of them. He achieved this not through military might or overt aggression, but by being exquisitely adaptable, charming, witty, and always understanding the subtle currents of power. He knew how to flatter without appearing servile, how to advise without seeming to dictate, and how to survive major political upheavals by always appearing indispensable and loyal, even when he was quietly shifting his allegiances. He was a master of observation and nuanced social performance.
Wow, that's a lot to digest for this second set of laws, Luke. From ruthless annihilation to charming social maneuvering, it really paints a picture of a world where power is sought and maintained through incredibly diverse and often unsettling means.
It truly does, Katie. These laws aren't about being good or bad, but about understanding the raw mechanics of influence and control that have shaped history and continue to shape our world.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us for part 2 of our deep dive into the 48 Laws of Power. I know I'm walking away with a lot to think about.
We hope you found it as thought-provoking and perhaps a little eye-opening as we did.
Don't forget, if these discussions are sparking your interest and you want to delve deeper, you can find the 48 Laws of Power and other related books. Just check out the description below for links. Your support through those affiliate links helps us keep this channel going strong.
And please, if you're enjoying our podcast, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could hit that like button. Share this episode with anyone you think might find it interesting, and subscribe to the Long Story Spoken channel. Your engagement truly helps us reach more listeners and continue exploring these fascinating topics.
We'll be back soon with part 3, where we'll explore laws 25 through 36. Get ready, because I have a feeling it only gets more intense from here. Until then, stay powerful and stay curious.